Well, hey there. How's the golden age of America going? Are gas prices down? Can you afford food? Have you been able to pay off your credit card bills? Did everything you voted for come true? Is it just wonderfully peaceful across the entire world right now? Or, in the past couple of months, has everything fallen apart and we are currently living in a nightmare? Welcome back to Partyless. I took some time off after my last episode, and the war with Iran immediately started. Quite literally immediately. I think it was the next day the war started. And I was so horrified watching everything unfold that I had to take a little break, because there's nothing that I could have said during that time that would honestly matter. And I was just kind of watching the news unfold with the rest of you and really praying that it would be a quick conflict that would be solved very shortly. It was not. It's still ongoing. And a lot has happened during that time. So I'm back. I'll be talking about a lot of different things that have occurred in the past couple of months. So let's talk about what happened and a brief timeline of what's gone down since January 2026. It was going to be our year, everybody. It was going to be our year. Everything was going to be great. And no, we're in World War III. So in January, we started hearing about the protests in Iran heating up. And everyone was kind of like, why are we hearing about this? What does this have to do with us? And I did my episode on Iran and how we got there. So we were seeing on the news, we were hearing about mass killings of protesters ordered during nationwide unrest. And the government was allegedly killing all of these protesters. They were saying 30,000 people were being murdered in the streets. And while it seems that there were definitely some deaths, we have absolutely no idea how many there actually were. It seems to be only a few thousand, which is obviously anyone being murdered is a horrible thing. But it was nowhere near on the scale that we were hearing. And likely now we have seen Mossad involvement. They were inciting what was going on. They wanted to force us into this war. And so they were down there on the ground, undercover, trying to incite all of this.
The first days, it was just totally peaceful protests. But those forces of Mossad and, some Kurdish groups have turned it in slaughtering those peaceful people in streets. But they have made a kind of a false flag.
Trump admitted to giving weapons to protesters, but he claimed the weapons didn't make it into their hands.
On what happened earlier this year as the Iranian regime took to the streets and slaughtered what the president tells me is 45,000 civilians in their own country. After that took place, President Trump told me the United States sent guns to the Iranian protesters. He tells me we sent them a lot of guns. We sent them through the Kurds, and the president says he thinks the Kurds kept them.
So obviously the United States was doing what it does best, which is interfere in foreign nations and try to do regime change, which never works. So it ended predictably, and we ended up at war.
So the Israelis at the end of the Iraq war were like, no, this is not going to work at all. We have to break this up. We have to go to war in Syria. We have to take down Assad. Arab Spring happened. There was some energy from the people. I think it was somewhat organic. But then in short order, we came in and we said, we're going to work with the Israelis, but we're also going to have to work heavily with the Sunni population on the ground in Syria to create an uprising. And that's where ISIS came from. We worked directly with al-Qaeda. Hillary Clinton's emails confirm this. The operations that we were doing to support the so-called Free Syrian Army, and there were some moderates there, but the most effective guys initially were al-Qaeda and then eventually ISIS. Now, obviously, ISIS got out of control, and they started plotting attacks in Europe. They started plotting attacks in America. They took over large swaths of Iraq. So we then had to go back and put out, once again, the brush fire that we had started and go after ISIS. And that's where I lost my late wife. But Israel was the driving factor in that. We took down Saddam, who was a strong man against Israel. We then had to go in and take out Assad, who was a strong man against Israel as well. And now this is the third phase. We're going now into Iran to take out that strong government for Israel.
Who did we put in charge of Syria?
Oh, we handed that whole, well, again, we screwed the whole thing up so much
we handed it to a leader of fucking al-Qaeda.
Yep. He was in ISIS initially. He was in al-Qaeda initially in Iraq, fighting against us. We had him in jail, joined ISIS, broke off from ISIS, hand selected by bin Laden's right-hand man, Ayman Zawahiri, to lead Nusra. and then they rebranded. And this is the number one way to fool Americans as a jihadist is just put on a suit and get a good PR company, and then apparently we'll just believe whatever you say.
There's videos of this guy holding people's heads that he cut off.
Yeah, he's the thug.
He's shaking
he's a brutal
President
terrorist.
Trump's hand.
Yeah, horrible advice.
I fully agree with Joe Kent's assessment that we were forced into this and that we have absolutely nothing to gain from being here. I do not believe for a single minute, based on the evidence that the American intelligence community had, which they've been pretty open about. Tulsi Gabbard actually did a very interesting congressional hearing where she pretty much said, yeah, we didn't have intelligence saying they had any nuclear bombs or were even close, and we destroyed everything last year in June that they could have even had, but that the president's in charge and the president decided to go in.
You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to the
Here's
president
the problem.
based on a volume
no,
of
it is
information
precisely
that he receives.
It is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing.
And she's right. The president, this falls upon him. He decided to do it for whatever reason. You can agree, you can disagree, you could think that Israel had absolutely nothing to do with it. I think it's pretty clear that Benjamin Netanyahu fed us fake intelligence and tricked us into doing his dirty work. And we are currently going to be paying the price for that. Regular Americans are going to be paying the price for that. You know how I feel about it? Not happy. I'm not happy at all. We should not be at war with Iran. We are, and now getting out of it is going to be incredibly difficult. So on February 28th, 2026, the war began. The U.S. and Israel launched large-scale airstrikes on Iran. Khamenei was killed the same day in a targeted strike, along with most of his family, including his granddaughter. I understand that we can't just be doves, but I'm never going to celebrate the murder of innocent civilians, especially children. And Khamenei actually was the leader who had a fatwa against developing nuclear weapons. So we killed the guy who said he didn't want a nuclear bomb. And critics will say, we can't trust a single thing that they say. Well, either fatwas are scary and horrible, and we should take them seriously, or fatwas are fake. I'm going to go with fatwas are real, and they were not planning to develop a nuclear weapon. However, given how other world leaders who gave up their nuclear programs died horribly, notably one who was sodomized and bayoneted, yeah, I think that pretending to continue a nuclear program is probably in their best interest, to be honest, if you actually look at it logically. On February 28th, the first day of the war, they killed Khamenei, and then horrifically, the world watched as a U.S. Tomahawk missile fell upon a girls' elementary school. Ooh. The Shajara Tayyaba Girls Elementary School in Minab, southern Iran, it was completely destroyed in a missile strike.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation.
Justify the blood of children. Before we get dismissive about what happened in Minab, I want to play a video. You can see the video with me out here. You see the video out there. And what you're watching right now is footage. I can play the music over it. This is footage shot on the ground in Minab by an Iranian journalist. It's a 30-minute documentary, the first of its kind, showing the immediate aftermath of the February 28th strike in the Shajara Tayyaba Girls' School. What you can see are destroyed books You can see rubble, the school has come down to it, and you can see how children in their school uniforms are seen in body bags covered in blood. You can see the body bags have been lined up in the street and the imprint left in the debris, small child-sized. It's not AI. No, Mr. Ambassador, it can't be kicked down the road saying we will investigate, like Trump says. Can I be on air? And with all due respect, the potential perpetrators of the act cannot be investigating the potential, they can't be investigating themselves. This was just so terrible, and it's been widely reported that the school was fully intact, and then it collapsed, and it's very sad.
It's very sad. And
it's very wrong.
It's very tragic as well. Look.
They did a double tap strike, which means they waited for the first strike where the little girls were killed, and then they waited for people to come and try to help them, teachers. There were survivors, little children who had survived, and people tried to help the children, and then they bombed them again, murdering and incinerating everyone who had come to help. So they died in a horrific way. Some were burned alive. It's truly horrific. And remember, this is day one. This is day one. We've killed Khamenei, his whole family, a ton of the government, and we've now bombed a girls' elementary school of little children, like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, tiny little girls who were at school. To this day, the United States has not come out and said, yes, we did it, we apologize. They are silent. It's been pretty much proven across the world that, yes, we did it. Now, did we do it with Israeli intelligence? Probably. A lot of what's happening with this war, and this is why it's so disgusting, is that it's AI. And people are just pushing buttons. Hundreds to thousands of miles away, they're just pushing buttons. They feel nothing. They're using AI to get targets. There were cases where places were being bombed it's an empty park, but it had like police in the name. And so they're just using AI to try to select targets. Whether or not this is the United States operating on Israeli intelligence and just not caring what's going on, so many thousands of civilians are dying in Lebanon, in Iran, that we can't even pretend that this was ever to help the Iranian people. So much has happened, and I don't even want to cover it because so many other people have covered it, and they have all the details you never want to hear. But the bottom line is that it's very hard for the United States to sit here and say, we are moral, we are the good guys, we are here to help, we are here to liberate, when we are murdering children and not even apologizing or admitting if it was a mistake or not. And that is why I have no respect for Pete Hegseth. No respect, which is incredibly disappointing because when he was first nominated, I was excited. I thought, wow, this guy's going to really overhaul the military. We're going to get rid of all the woke garbage that has been in the military. And unfortunately, he seems to be completely devoid of humanity. And you can be pro-protecting our borders. You can be pro-strength. You can be pro-strong men protecting our country, but you really cannot allow politics to mean that you excuse the murder of elementary school girls because their school was nearby a military base. And that's just like Fort Bragg. And they've got elementary schools right near Fort Bragg. Does that mean what we're essentially saying? If you defend this, you're basically saying that it's okay for Russia to bomb the elementary school next to Fort Bragg because it's near Fort Bragg. It's just simply wrong. Don't try to excuse it. I'm disappointed that I live in a country where my tax dollars were blown up in the face of little girls who are now dead. It disgusts me, and I had to take time off, to be honest, because I was trying to come to grips with this. And it's never stopped. We're doing it every day. We've just got to come back and accept the fact that we did a double tap strike to kill whatever survivors there were left. Parents were responding. The teachers were responding, trying to get these children out. And we double tapped them, bombed the survivors. It was evil. It was truly heinous and evil. And that isn't even the worst thing that's happened since then, that were carried out by your tax dollars, my tax dollars. It's hard to talk about.
That they need their mother now. There is no mother. They do not have their mother.
We went to the local cemetery where new graves were still being dug for the children. We spoke with more families here, people who are completely shattered by what they have lost.
Based on which right? Based on which right you did target this school? Do you think that under the rules and regulation of UN, this is acceptable to target the school? They were innocent children. They were very little. There were nothing with them.
It's honestly hard to talk about, and I'm going to move on because I can't even hardly talk about it. This was the opening hours of the war. This is not a later event. This was day one. So it started that badly. So right after that, Iran, the next day, confirmed Khamenei's death, and they had interim leadership structure that was trying to be put into place. Of course, most of the family was murdered. But of course, his son then took over, and he became the supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. So we replaced Khamenei with Khamenei. Yeah, and this guy's entire family was just murdered, so you can imagine he's not too happy or willing to make a deal. We had more heavy strikes on the 9th of March across Tehran and Isfahan. We had tons of missile exchanges. Bombing was just every single day. You were watching people just be murdered in horrific ways, and we were just watching it unfold, completely powerless, just praying it was going to end. So the bombing continued. April 5th was Easter, and then Donald Trump took that holy day and decided to tweet his infamous power plant and bridge day tweet that shocked and horrified everybody. And on one hand, we're either supposed to take the president seriously, therefore he's saying he's going to wipe out an entire civilization, or, as people I actually knew tried to say, oh, you know, he's just joking, he's just supposed to be strong, and you know that he's just trying to scare them. These are Iranians. These aren't just savages. These are human beings. These are not just people dwelling in tents in the desert, which I think people believe. I have no idea what you think that Iran looks like, but here's a photograph of Tehran in Iran, and this is, you know, one of the places that we and Israel were bombing. It's not the desert. This is a city. These are people just like you and I. They are of a different religion that I fundamentally disagree with. The majority, of course, is Muslim, but there are Christians there. There are other religions there. We have to understand, it doesn't matter where a person lives. They were created in the image of God. And like I said before, we were operating and going into this war on faulty intelligence from Israel, who simply wanted to remove their greatest enemy, and they wanted to continue the Greater Israel Project, which I talked about in my last episode. I was met with just people calling me a conspiracy theorist and all kinds of names. They later, during this war, have come out publicly and said, yep, that's what it was about. And we've watched them completely bomb, destroy, and bulldoze Lebanon. The head of Lebanon is a Christian, and they have decimated, destroyed, bulldozed, and murdered countless people in Christian villages and stolen their land. Just like they did in Gaza, they've done the same thing. So Israel now is completing their Greater Israel Project, and they have made massive gains in Lebanon.
After leveling homes, neighborhoods, and entire cities in Gaza, Israel is exporting that model to southern Lebanon, raising civilian infrastructure in towns and villages near the border to carve a buffer zone out of Lebanese territory, which the Israeli military says is aimed at distancing Israel's northern residents from the threats posed by Hezbollah. But in one town after the next in southern Lebanon, rows of homes have been flattened, shops torn to the ground, entire neighborhoods erased. Over 6 weeks of war, the Israeli military systematically demolished the town of Eit Shab, now practically wiped from the map. Along this street in the border town of Adaissa, which once held a pharmacy and auto repair shop, one building after the next has been reduced to rubble. Even the local mosque was not spared. In the town of Bin Jbeil, fierce fighting with Hezbollah militants soon gave way to controlled demolitions, razing the city's old quarter and buildings beyond. Such massive destruction of civilian infrastructure is considered to be a violation of international law and a potential war crime. The aftermath is both apocalyptic and yet terrifyingly familiar, revealing the same kind of systematic destruction Israel carried out to create a buffer zone in Gaza. And like in Gaza, the fragile ceasefire in Lebanon doesn't mean Israel will cease demolitions. Israeli officials say they will continue.
The only reason that these people are dead, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of children, the only reason that they have the unfortunate fate of being murdered by Israelis is that they happen to be on the border of this country that was created in 1948 that wants to expand. And they're going to murder every man, woman, and child who stands in their way. That's a fact. That's not my opinion.
Just on the Middle East issue, you and your Senate colleague Chris Van Hollen of Maryland are behind the Justice for Hind Rajab Act, which seeks accountability for the killing of 5-year-old Hind Rajab, who was murdered alongside 6 of her family members by Israeli forces. Talk to us about this act and what it's supposed to do.
Well, first of all, let's talk about Hind Rajab, and I know you've been involved in this. This is an incredible story. This little girl was with her family. They broke down, and then they needed aid because they suffered some injuries. The emergency medical staff was coming out. They coordinated with the Israelis, and when they got there, they all got shot and killed, including her. And she was on the phone for a period of time before she died asking for help.
And now there's a movie with the recording.
And now there's a movie with that. And it is a totally unjustifiable killing. And our act, Senator Van Hollen and I, is for accountability. We want to get to the bottom of it. What Israeli units were involved, what weapons were used, did it involve U.S. weapons? And we can get no response whatsoever from the Israeli government. So they're acting with impunity. This poor little girl who was stuck in this damaged car and died literally within our earshot. It's a tragic case, and Senator Van Hollen and I are horrified by it. I mean, the military, in any case, whether it's U.S. or Israeli, there's rules of engagement. And you had this little girl who was pleading, and her family, and they just got machine gunned to death. I mean, this is horrifying.
We have to come to grips with the fact that they're using our money to do it. It is reprehensible. It is sickening. It is devastating. Once again, it's hard to talk about. So April 5th, Easter, Donald Trump said he was going to wipe their civilization out. I voted for Donald Trump 3 times, and it's like someone has taken over his body and is doing the opposite of what we voted for. I can only imagine he is being blackmailed, or he's in fear for his life, or he has just lost his mind because everything he's doing is the opposite of what he campaigned on just a year ago. And all I can say is he's doing the opposite of what I voted for. So since I am not in a cult, I can say I don't support his actions at all. I don't appreciate my tax dollars being stolen from my paycheck that I could be using to feed my children, and then it being used to blow up in a double tap strike elementary school girls whose families are now left completely bereft. I can't even imagine if this happened to me. I would not recover. I would not recover. I pray for those families every day. It doesn't matter if they are of a different religion than me, of a different race than me. It is horrifying. It is evil beyond belief, and my country perpetrated it, and that is hard to hear. I still love my country. I'm still a patriot. I'm proud of my country, but we must admit what we did. We must apologize, and we must never do it again. It's that simple. If we want to claim that we're the good guys, then be the good guys, and we know what we have to do. I pray to God that they do that, and that's one of the reasons why I think that Pete Hegseth must be removed. There is something dark in that man. And if you actually dig into his past, he is a philanderer. He cheated on his wife. He is pretty much a completely evil man. And if you look into his history at all, you will not like what you see. And I didn't. When I just kind of took him at face value, I thought, this is like a really manly guy who's going to fix the military. No, this is a terrible human being. Look into his background. So on April 7th through 8th, 2026, we had a ceasefire that took effect. This is around day 40 of the war. Remember when they were saying there is no war? It was just a strike like in Venezuela. And, you're an idiot and a panikin if you think this is an actual war. This isn't a war. Hi, guys. We're still in the war. April 12th, he posted on Truth Social, which is, of course, his platform, an AI image of himself looking like Jesus, unmistakably like Jesus, people praying to him. You had demons flying above him. If you ever want to know if something was really tweeted or posted by Trump, all you have to do is go to his Truth Social page. You can Google Truth Social Donald Trump, and you can just scroll down the page and see if he posted it. He did. He defended it originally. He said that he thought it was an awesome picture, that he thought he was a doctor in the Red Cross. Donald Trump isn't stupid. He may be many things, but he's not stupid. He knew it was Jesus, and he liked it, and he posted it. It's that simple. He ended up deleting it because it was obviously met with massive backlash from every real Christian in the world, because that's blasphemy and we don't appreciate it. Of course, we got a lot of people trying to defend it because I get it. It's been hard to have Trump attacked for years by Democrats when we had Biden, who was a vegetable and who was completely corrupt, and his whole family was reprehensible. So we feel a knee-jerk reaction to defend Trump, even when he is completely in the wrong. We cannot fall to that. If Trump is doing something wrong, feel free to grab your character and say, this is wrong. We are not in a cult. If a politician that I voted for or that I previously supported does something terrible, I'm going to call them out. I have no problem with that. That doesn't mean that I hate that person now or I think I should have voted for someone else. I would obviously still, after all of this, have rather voted for Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean that I am okay with or support everything that he's doing, and I will continue to call out anything that he does that is reprehensible. And this entire war is reprehensible. Murdering children is reprehensible. Partnering with Israel at this point, given their genocide and the fact that they give us nothing, they provide us nothing, they spit on our nuns, they spit on Christians, they murder families. The settlers are stealing land and killing people, burning them alive, throwing people off roofs to steal. They literally, the video of them throwing a family's pets off of a rooftop as the children screamed and cried, that one was hard to watch. That was hard to watch. A little girl who was carrying water being shot in the head for fun by Israelis, and her brother had to pull her body away. I mean, she looked like she was probably 4 or 5 years old, and her brother probably only a year or two older than her, and he's dragging her with a giant blood stain. I'm not even going to show you the picture. These are the kinds of things that haunt my dreams. So the evil that we're witnessing Israel perpetrate, I want out. I don't want a single one of my dollars to support that country. I want them to be completely cut off because of the evil that they've perpetrated. Let me just tell you how I really feel. So we had the ceasefire around day 40. The large-scale fighting stopped. And then, of course, like I said, Israel continued to bomb and murder people. They still are to this day in this fake ceasefire. And of course, in Gaza, they're still murdering people in tents. They are just bombing the refugees in tents. They're just bombing them every few days. Horrific. April 12th, the tweet of Trump looking like Jesus. And then April 24th, Trump tweeted that Candace Owens is the most vile person of the year. The entire month of April, Trump had been tweeting about Tucker Carlson being low IQ, Candace Owens being low IQ, Megyn Kelly he was attacking, Alex Jones he was attacking, saying they all had no viewers, just demonstrably false statements. He pretty much named the people that got him elected, people who had campaigned for him, people who were, some of them, like Tucker, were personal friends of his, and he smeared them, mocked them, and just posted outright lies. And everybody knows these people aren't low IQ. Everybody knows these people are successful. Everybody knows these people are only gaining in viewership. And Mark Levin, who Trump has all year tried to force everyone to watch, has no viewership. I mean, this podcast is about to start competing with Mark Levin's views. That's how poorly Mark Levin is doing. He's getting only a few thousand views on each of his episodes, which is, I mean, talk about low IQ, talk about no viewership. But of course, Trump is just making up whatever he wants. And you completely lose credibility when you do that. And so over the past year, Trump has tried to just say a Trump fact, which is what he wishes were true, and is completely untrue. And then people kind of are like, okay, now whatever you say means nothing because you're just making stuff up and lying, and you've degraded your own reputation. And all of this happened because Laura Loomer, who is an insane 30-year-old woman who has been previously committed multiple times. If you don't know who Laura Loomer is, thank your lucky stars. She is a bizarre, insane human being who has been given access to the president. At this point, people are alleging that she's gone around telling people that she's been having an affair on Air Force One at some point with Trump, and that's why she's able to force him to tweet for her. But she hates Candace Owens. She hates Megyn Kelly. She really hates Tucker Carlson. She has said some heinous things about Tucker Carlson and his family, even mocked the fact that his mother abandoned him and his brother, and just tried to say the most hateful things you can ever imagine about Candace Owens. She tweeted that God hates Candace Owens. She's trying to drive people to suicide, but she is allegedly one of Trump's top advisors. This is a person who's been committed to a psychiatric facility. She's not allowed to own firearms, and she is mentally unstable, and she has access to the president. She was apparently one of the first people that he called to speak to after he declared war in Iran. And it's mind-boggling that he's letting this person anywhere near him, but that's what this administration has become, the Laura Loomer administration. And she wanted Tucker attacked, she wanted Candace attacked, and so he did. And that's why out of nowhere we're seeing these insane posts from Trump, and it's just been embarrassing and horrible, and it's been tough this past year. So we are now, today's May 1st, we're still at war, and the current status of this war, according to CBS, they posted an article saying that Iran has offered a new proposal for a second round of peace talks with the U.S. after the Trump administration rejected a previous offer delaying negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. So this new offer comes as senior Iranian commanders warns any new U.S. attacks will draw sustained, wide-ranging, and painful retaliation. So as we already saw, Israel blew up civilian bridges and infrastructure, desalination plants, their water plants, and all kinds of civilian infrastructure in order to just cause mass murder, because that's their MO. They love to kill children. They love to kill civilians. It is the rule, not the exception. And so they fight that way. There are no rules to Israel. There is no line they will not cross. That is not my opinion. Look at their previous conflicts. There is no line. There is no rule. There is nothing that they will not do. Period. Look at the actual results. Do not look at what they're saying. What they're saying doesn't matter. What they have done is what matters. And that's what's so tough to talk to people about that are Israel defenders. And also, I do not equate Israel and the Jews. So just to get that out of the way, Israel is not the Jews. Israel is a secular nation, first of all, that is full of people who are doing completely evil actions. The country is full of people like that who have been told that it's okay to rape, it's okay to kill, it's okay to do whatever you want, as long as you achieve your objectives. They are trained to view others as dogs, as cattle, and they have no problem murdering them. I would rather be trapped in a room with any criminal in the United States over a regular IDF soldier, because I think that they would be way more likely to murder me. They are literally trained that this is acceptable behavior, to rape, to kill, to butcher for fun. These are sadists. What's crazy is that there are legislators of our Congress trying to give them our military benefits. Anyone who is a dual citizen who is serving in the IDF. First of all, we shouldn't have dual citizens. It shouldn't be allowed. We shouldn't have dual citizens at all. Pick one. You're either a citizen of this country or a different country. You don't get to have both, because that means you have dual loyalty, which means this isn't acceptable. If you serve in a foreign military, you should have to immediately lose your citizenship for this country. But they're actually trying to pass through legislation that your tax dollars would be taken to pay for these rapists and murderers in the IDF. So a lot going on there. Trump has argued Friday that the U.S. has already won the war. I mean, he said we won the war 50 times. And of course, there is no way to even say we've won a war until we have completely pulled out, and we haven't. He has called the Iranian deal unsatisfying, but he considers his next move in the costly 9-week conflict, saying he wants to win by a bigger margin and ensure Iran can never attain a nuclear weapon. Once again, Iran is probably always going to say they're going to pursue nuclear ambition, because if they don't, then they will end up sodomized by bayonets like Gaddafi. It's just common sense. They probably don't even have the capability at all, but they're never going to say they won't, because then Israel will bulldoze their country like it has every other country it's come into contact with. This is common sense. So them actually having a nuclear bomb should be the red line, not them enriching, which once again is all Joe Kent has been saying this entire time. Of course, they leaked stories saying that he was a leaker himself, totally unproven, totally false. Unfortunately, a lot of people believed it, and it's very sad.
You know, famously, the head of the Counterterrorism Center, one of the top intel officials in the country, Joe Kent, resigned shortly after the war began and said exactly the same thing. I think this decision is connected to a series of seemingly disconnected events, all of which revolve around violence. And we need to find out more about how this happened. And he was, of course, dismissed and threatened with an FBI investigation, and no one kind of followed up on that. And again, I don't know the answer, but this was not a normal decision-making process. And my strong impression was that Trump was more a hostage than a sovereign decision maker in this.
Well, so tell me what you're getting at when you say the president of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, had no choice.
I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm just telling you what I observed.
The Trump administration faces a key deadline in the war on Friday under the decades-old law limiting the use of force without authorization from Congress. Of course, our Congress is corrupt, and it doesn't even matter. They're totally owned by Israel. Trump called that unconstitutional Friday, and Hegseth argued the 60-day war limit is paused amid the ongoing ceasefire. Interesting. So they're trying to use this false ceasefire where people are still being murdered by Israel every single day in Lebanon and Iran. They're trying to say that it's pausing the key deadline for that law limiting the use of force without authorization from Congress. Not that Congress will stop them, because they don't stop anything. Al Jazeera reports that the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said that Iran is ready to pursue diplomacy if the U.S. alters its expansionist approach and threatening rhetoric. So the Greater Israel Project, where Israel is just using this false war to bulldoze a Christian country, which is Lebanon, who has nothing to do with this conflict. It's documented fact that Netanyahu armed Hezbollah and funded them in order to say, oh, we need to stop them. And so we're going to murder everyone here, and we're just going to call them Hezbollah fighters. And in reality, it's a 2-year-old child. They bombed children at the funeral of their father who had been bombed the previous week. The stories coming out of this war are absolutely horrific. It mirrors anything that happened in the Holocaust. And, back then we were always taught never again. We were trained to recognize this. Well, then recognize it. Never again means you need to stand up and say murdering people is wrong. It doesn't matter if they're a Jew. It doesn't matter if they're a Muslim. Murdering people, especially children, is evil and wrong. And yet, the run-of-the-mill person that I talk to will just say, why do you hate the Jews? And it's absolutely mind-boggling to try to get through to these people. I'm so frustrated. It's why I started this podcast, because I can't even have this conversation with people. I really don't know how to reason with people at this point who, if I say I don't support Israel, they say, you're a Jew hater. If I say, I think murdering children is wrong, they'll say, you don't support Israel's right to exist? First of all, if you exist, you exist. I don't support a country existing for the sake of existing. If someone can take over their country, unfortunately, I guess you lost your country. Does Lebanon have the right to exist? It existed, and now it's being stolen. I believe we, as United States citizens, should not allow our tax dollars to be stolen by a foreign country who does nothing for us. Israel gives us nothing. They don't provide any imports to us. They don't provide anything for us. They are a drain on our resources. They just steal our money and then murder children with it and steal other people's countries with it. They could not fund this war without us. They have abortions on demand with our tax dollars because we are paying for their war. That's how it works. I don't know how to reason with people at this point. It's not Jew hate to be against murdering children. And think about what you're saying when you say that. If it's Jew hate to be against murdering children, then you need to think about why you're supporting the people that murder children. Make it make sense. These people are secular, and I love a page called Voice of Rabbis. It's a group of Jewish people who are incredibly against the nation of Israel, incredibly against Zionism, incredibly against all of this, and they post constantly saying, stop saying that this is a Jewish nation. Stop saying that this place speaks for Jews, because it doesn't at all.
Laman Hashem, if anybody has Rahmanas, has mercy on Jews all over the world, please, if you're Jewish or non-Jewish, let the world know. Jews all over the world are not responsible for the actions of the state of Israel. Israel doesn't represent the Jewish people. Israel claims to represent all the Jews all over the world. If I don't like my president in the United States, I can move to Mexico or Canada or Japan, and I'm free of him. But because I'm Jewish, wherever I go, Benjamin Netanyahu claims he's my leader, and Israel claims to be a democracy. This sounds like a dictatorship to me, not a democracy. We didn't vote for him. He doesn't represent us. But because the Zionists give out this message that they're the state of the Jewish people, Jews all over the world are blamed for whatever Israel does.
They're a great resource if you want to look up how their name is being stolen. And they always say, not in our name. Not in our name. Don't murder people in our name. Don't murder everyone in Lebanon and bulldoze their country and murder Christians in our name. Don't spit on nuns and shove them to the ground in our name. That was just something that came out. Here's a video of a 36-year-old man, Jewish man, running up behind a nun, minding her own business and shoving her to the ground.
This film of a nun being attacked in Jerusalem has stunned people and caused international outrage. So here's what we know. It was filmed earlier this week. The attacker, who seems to be wearing clothing typical of an observant Jewish man, is seen running up behind the nun and then pushing her over. A bystander simply watches and doesn't seem to help. The attacker walks away and then returns to kick the nun as she is lying on the floor. Only then does someone intervene. The nun who was attacked is a researcher with a French academic institution called the École Biblique. Its director, Father Olivier Poquillon, described the attack as sectarian violence and wrote, "The scourge of hatred is a common challenge." The French consulate in Jerusalem has called for justice to be served. Now, Jerusalem's old city is home to some of Christianity's most important sites, but Christians here have repeatedly been targeted. In this video, young men are seen spitting at a church entrance, and here another man spits at a priest. Both these videos are from earlier this year.
That's what they do to Christians in the Holy Land, which they've branded as the Holy Land, so that you will fund them. And in your Christian Zionist churches, you will think that this is what you've got to do. And everybody in the previous generation has been brainwashed into thinking that we must support this country. I have no problem with the Jews. I have a problem with people that murder children. I have a problem with rapists. I have a problem with criminals. I have a problem with stealing other people's land. And doing it under the name of the Jews doesn't make you, number one, Jewish, doesn't make Israel the Israel of the Bible, and God's chosen people are Christians. Talk to a pastor, one that's not a Christian Zionist, and hopefully you'll have that explained to you. Back to our timeline. Iran is apparently ready to pursue diplomacy. Of course, Israel's never going to stop, and they're going to continue bombing. Netanyahu is under a corruption trial, and it's paused whenever they're at war. And so he's trying to continue this war forever so that he and his wife don't have to face the rest of the corruption trial. There's a wonderful documentary that Tucker Carlson has put on his network. It was not made by him. It was made independently, but he's one of the only people who's willing to show this documentary. So check it out. It's footage of Netanyahu and his family, and you can see how heinous they are with your own eyes, because it's in their own words. Israel's military has been waging more deadly attacks in southern Lebanon, killing a woman and a child in the town of Habush. They love to murder women and children because that's the next generation. They want them dead. They consider them animals, and they'll kill them all if they can. Lebanon's parliament speaker, Nabe Berri, said the declared ceasefire with Israel is only allowing Israel to escalate its aggression because they can't fight back. So where's the truce, he said. They're still murdering people in Lebanon every day. The U.S. Treasury threatened to sanction shippers that pay tolls to Iran for safe transit through the Strait of Hormuz. So, of course, the Strait of Hormuz was open before this, and then we bombed a bunch of children, and they destroyed Lebanon, and Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. And now we are trying to blockade anyone from going in that might pay Iran, and there's a world energy crisis. The people of Ireland are suffering because they can't even afford oil to use in their homes, and the entire world is suffering right now, and it's only going to get worse. And by the grace of God, this is not happening in the middle of winter, or this would be a critical emergency. But we've got a lack of fertilizer. I mean, there could be a massive famine that's coming. I don't think people fully understand how serious this is, and how if we don't stop this in the next 24, 48 hours, we are going to have a crisis that's going to last years. And you can just listen to any economist, anyone qualified is going to tell you the same thing that I'm saying, because it's obvious. It's obvious. So on April 24th, Trump tweeted that Candace Owens was the most vile person of the year. And then on April 25th, we had the White House Correspondents Dinner, and Cole Allen attempted to assassinate Trump. So there's not even been a day that we could take a break from an insane news cycle, and every day something horrible would happen. And I just got more and more tired thinking of how I could come back to this podcast after taking a break, because so much had happened, which is why I'm doing it this way. Another horrible thing that was incredibly disappointing and devastating, John Thune refused to pass the SAVE Act. And our Congress essentially killed the most popular thing in our entire country, which would be ensuring that our elections were secured. And they killed the bill. They are pretty much refusing to vote on it, and Thune needs to be removed. I mean, he is acting against what 95% of people want. It's astonishing. And so we voted this government in that proceeded to act against our interests, even if it was supported by both parties, because usually they can just say, oh, the Democrats are blocking this. Oh, the Republicans are blocking this. But everybody supported this bill. 85% of Democrats, 95% of Republicans. And we still couldn't get it done. But when you have so many people entrenched, how do we clean the entire house? How do we get rid of all of them at the same time and vote in new, fresh ideas and people? I just don't know that it's possible. The only one that's worth anything is Thomas Massie, and he has voted with Trump 91% of the time. And the times that he hasn't, he's been voting for things that Trump originally said and ran on, like no war and not allowing FISA to spy on Americans. And then Trump is flip-flopping. Not Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie is the furthest thing from a Democrat. And yet he is being primaried because of his views on trying to be America first. I paid almost $5 a gallon of gas the other day. And it's costing almost $100 to fill up my car. I didn't vote for that. Did you vote for that? Did you vote for catastrophically high prices on gas and food? And I mean, I voted for the opposite. I voted for peace. He said he was the peace president and the peace candidate. He made the board of peace and then immediately declared war. I'm really upset with Donald Trump. Sorry if that offends you. I voted for him 3 times. I supported him. I defended him. And I'm allowed to be angry that what I voted for didn't happen. I was lied to. So that's kind of what's been happening in the world. And it's been brutal. It's been rough. I want to talk about some Maha-related stuff. I want to talk about health. I want to talk about all kinds of issues. And I would love to talk about how the war has ended. And we can focus on America. And we don't have to talk about a foreign country because I find that deeply uninteresting. It's not my country. I don't want to talk about children being murdered in a foreign country. I don't want it to be happening, first of all. But I also don't want to be a party to it. I want to talk about how we were just shockingly betrayed by our Congress, where they just voted against Donald Trump and RFK's mandate to stop EBT users, food stamps users, from being able to buy soda and sugar and junk food, which our Congress just voted that down. Anyway, it's good to be back, and I will see you next time, hopefully with a lighter topic, and hopefully nothing crazy happens in the next couple of weeks that I gotta jump on here and cover. See you next time on Partyless.